If there's one muscle that everyone wants to grow, and also coincidentally is the most flexed muscle out there, which one should it be? Of course, I'm talking about the biceps. Literally almost every uncle, dad, brother or whoever
don't freak out when you see this biceps, okay?
has flexed their biceps to show off those gains and made you admire it. And now you want big biceps as well. Well, my friends, I'm here to help you out, and I'm going to be explaining how to actually train your biceps correctly to create a fully developed bicep. So to start off, let's cover the anatomy of the biceps. Now the biceps are divided in two heads, hence the term biceps. So we have the long head and the short head. The bicep has three different functions. It's responsible for flexion of the arm or bending the arm, supination of the forearm or twisting your wrist out, and it's partly responsible for anti-flexion of the arm, which is raising the arm in an upwards motion. Now the short head of the bicep is on the inside of the arm, which, if well developed, creates the width and thickness of the arm from the front. Now the long head lies on the outside of the arm, which, if well developed, creates the peak of the bicep. Now to put this into good perspective, how your bicep will develop will greatly depend on your genetic bicep structure. Now, some people just simply have more mass on the short head of their biceps, and some people just simply have more mass on the long head of the biceps. Now besides the biceps, there's also a muscle called the brachialis, which lies next to the biceps and in between the bicep and the tricep. And when developing that muscle, it brings out a more thick looking arm when viewed from the front, which I will cover in this video as well. Alright, so that means that there are a couple of different functions you have to keep in mind when it comes to training the biceps. The most important functions though are flexion and supination. Now there are differences in terms of stimulation when it comes to grip width. Narrow curls stimulate more of the long head, which is on the outside of your arm, and wide grip curls stimulate more of the short head, which is on the inside of your arm. Now I'm including this information in the video to give you perspective on how you can approach your arm training if you tend to notice any lagging development in the short or the long head of the biceps. But right now, let's dive into how to fully develop the biceps. Alright, so I've selected a couple of exercises which are really effective in stimulating the biceps fully, ensuring a full contraction and stretch to create fully developed biceps. Now some key exercises would be the supinating bicep curls. Now supinating means you will twist your wrist at peak contraction, which also stimulates the peak of the biceps to its full potential to ensure you're stimulating both heads of the biceps. Now like I said, the biceps have two major functions, flexion and supination. Now this exercise ensures both functions are hit to its full potential. Now by utilizing supination, you're also correctly and fully stimulating the long head, or which we would also like to call peak contraction, which is necessary for full stimulation. Alright, the next exercise I want to shine a light on is the barbell curl. Now with this exercise you are keeping full tension on your biceps, even at lockout, since you're not twisting your wrist back into pronation, which is the opposite of supination. Now with this exercise, be sure to go above 90 degrees when curling to ensure full contraction of the biceps and let it fully stretch out. Alright, the next exercise is the Bayesian curl. Now the Bayesian curl will allow you to have your shoulder in a constant stretched position, meaning the only movement necessary is flexion of the arm with the biceps. Now by standing away from the cable station, your biceps will be fully stretched but still under tension. Now what I want you to focus on with this exercise is to ensure that even when the reps get heavy, you are keeping your shoulder in that stretched position. This ensures that you're not using your front delt into the exercise, since you want to purely stimulate the biceps. Preacher curls are also a great exercise to isolate the biceps. Now since the arm is in a locked position, you're only able to train the biceps since there are no other muscle groups involved when making the movement possible. You're purely utilizing flexion of the bicep. Now like I said, besides the biceps, there's also a muscle called the brachialis. Now the brachialis is a muscle that is just in between your biceps and your triceps. Now this muscle is most activated when performing curls in a neutral grip. Now some people prefer to train the biceps with a reverse grip, meaning you're curling with an overhand grip. However, since this will recruit a lot of the radiobrachialis as well, which is one of the forearm muscles mostly stimulated with curling motions, you won't primarily isolate the brachialis. So in my opinion, the best exercise for the brachialis is the hammer curl. Now when performing the hammer curl, focus on holding the dumbbells in a neutral grip. Curl all the way up to above 90 degrees, since this ensures full stimulation of the brachialis. Alright, so now that I've covered the anatomy exercises, biomechanics and so forth, I'd like to go over the rep ranges you can use to grow your biceps to its full potential. Now, since the arm muscles are pretty small compared to, for example, your chest or your back, there is a difference in the way you should tackle your arm training. Now, for biceps, I generally recommend 3 to 4 sets in the 10 to 15 rep range, along with some exceptions. Now, since the biceps don't really have any injury sensitive joints involved, you could consider going a little bit heavier on your exercises to stimulate more overload on the biceps, since if you train your back correctly, you won't actually stimulate too much of the biceps, so it's okay to throw in some heavy sets. Now, for example, sticking to the 6 to 8 rep range on some sets with a relatively heavy weight could do just the trick to build up some strength, since you're not using that much biceps on your compound movements, and switching it up to the 10 to 15 rep range would be ideal to build up hypertrophy. Now, you could try to roulette between those two, so say for example having heavier lower rep sets on the first upper or pull day of the week, and lighter higher rep sets on the second upper or pull day of the week. Now, having a mix of both heavy and light or controlled has shown to be a very effective method to growing the biceps or any other muscle group in that particular. Alright, now don't overdo your arm training, but rather stick to the basics and make progress on those exercises. Some of the key things to focus on when training your biceps and trying to make your biceps grow is focus on training your biceps more frequently. Now, since a muscle grows best when it is frequently stimulated, what you have to take into account when training your biceps is the muscle protein synthesis process. Now, this is the process where your muscle is recovering and growing, which generally lasts for about 48 to 72 hours. Now, this means that in practice, you can train your biceps every 2 days for maximal results. Now, what I do recommend you to do if you want to train your biceps more frequently is having at least a day of rest in between your pull days and the days you want to train your biceps. Now, to put this simple, you don't want to train your biceps on Monday if you're going to be having a pull day on Tuesday. You could, however, train your biceps on a push day if you don't have a pull day planned before the push day or after the push day, since your biceps will need the 48 hours of rest and not negatively impact the pull day you have prior or after. That's why it's smart to train your biceps on pull days, but some individuals might not want to have more pull days and rather just train the biceps more often. So plan it out correctly. Alright, so people who have lagging biceps tend to overshoot in volume because of the general idea that they will make your biceps grow faster. Now, one of the main drivers of hypertrophy is a bigger stimulus during weight training, or also referred to as progressive overload. Meaning that even for your biceps, you should be focusing on adding either more weight or more volume over time. But since you can only increase volume up to a certain point before it becomes too much volume, adding some weight to your exercises could be a solid technique for stimulating more hypertrophy. Alright, so that covers the biceps completely. Now go to the gym and grow yourself some biceps. Alright, and that is all for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to smash the like button, because it really helps out the channel grow. If you thought this video was helpful, please consider sharing it with your friends, since you know, who doesn't want big biceps. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel for so much more content coming really soon. I'm out, guys, and peace out. See you in the next one.